Good afternoon. Today we are going to be looking at graphs. We are going to be looking at pictographs and bar graphs. I'm sure you have looked at these before, but today we are going to actually be combining it with what we've been talking about, which is the comparison with the multiplication. So comparison questions, we're going to talk about how we can compare them. So our I can is actually going to be I can answer comparison questions about pictographs and bar graphs. So what we are going to focus on in this part of our video is going to be pictographs. And in class, we are going to be doing the bar graphs. So first, we're going to look right here. This is our class activity page of a pictograph. So the reason why pictographs are usually used is to show us something visually so you can actually see it. So if you're looking at this graph down here, you can actually look at it. And it says that when we use these kind of graphs, they're going to be using some kind of a picture or a symbol in order to represent the data. So I'm looking right here, and these looks like books. So I'm looking right here. This is their books checked out of the library. So they use books for the symbols in order to represent our data. Now, the important thing to look at in a pictograph is that we are going to see that each one of these books actually is going to stand for 5 books. So you have to make sure you pay attention to that key, because the key is not always the same. Sometimes it'll be 2, 1, 5, or 10. So you have to make sure you're paying attention to it. So when I'm looking here, each of these people have a different amount of books that they read. So if I'm looking at it, some of our questions are going to ask us to just visually look at the graph. So if I'm just looking at it, I can probably say who has read the most amount of books, and that's going to be Celine. Right, she's read the most. And then I can say who has read the most, and that's going to be Nahi right here. So that person has read the least. So we are going to be looking at how we can use equations and looking at this data in order to solve it. So let's look at our first question. It says write an addition equation and a subtraction equation that compare the number of books that Tark checked out, which is T, to the number of books that Jamarcus checked out, J. So remember, our letters for our variables should represent what they are standing for. So the T is standing for Tark. So before I can start, I need to figure out, in order to write down my equation, I have to solve a problem first. So I want you to think, what problem do I need to solve before I can write down an addition equation? Okay, so I need to come over here. It says Tark checked out. So I need to figure out how many books did Tark check out. So remember, each one of these means 5. So I'm going to skip count by 5s to figure out how many he has. So he had 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So he checked out 30 books. And then I need to come over and figure out how many books did Jamarcus read. Well, here's Jamarcus. He read 5, 10, 15. So Jamarcus read 15. Well, these are the numbers that I know. And I know that they want me to write an addition equation and a subtraction equation using both T and J. So I know that I'm not actually going to have these numbers in here. I just need to know them. So I should have T and I should have J. So in order to have our other missing number in here, that is our only number that should be in our problem. So I need to figure out what is the difference between these two. Since I'm working with addition and subtraction, I'm going to find the difference between these two. And I'll say, what is 30 minus 15? And I know that that is going to equal 15. So as I'm looking at this problem, this is the number that I'm using is 15 because I found the difference between these two numbers. So we are going to come over here and write our equation. So we said 15 is what we found. So I'm just going to write that at the top so we can see it. So my addition equation is going to be, I'm going to look at who has made the least amount of books. So that's between these two people. So I'm going to say it was Jamarcus. So that was J. So I'm going to say J plus our number here is 15 should be equal to how much our other person read, which was T. So if you remember when I added this, this should be saying that it was 15 plus 15 should equal the 30. Okay, so do we see how that works? So now we need to do the inverse. So this is the equation you would have written down on the line. So now I need to do the inverse of this. So remember, it's just like doing the opposite. I'm going to start with who made the most, which was T. And then I'm going to say T minus our number, which was 15, should be equal to J, or how much he read. So if I rewrote this down, we already said the T represented 30. So then 30 minus 15 should have equaled how many books Jamarcus read, which was 15. So this is the equation you would have been writing down. Both of these two would have been written down on this line. All right, let's try one more. So this says write a multiplication equation and a division equation that compare the number of books that Nahi checked out, which was N, and the number of books that Celine checked out, which was C. All right, so we're going to do the same kind of thing, but this time with multiplication and division. So in the last one we had to subtract to find the difference, but since this one we are using multiplication and division, we're going to have to do the multiplication comparison problem to figure out the difference. So we need to figure out how many books each person read first. So we're going to say for C, Celine, she had 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. She read 40 books. And then we're going to come out and look over how many books that he read, which were N. So we're going to say 5, 10. So somehow I need to put this into some kind of problem to figure out the number in between, because remember, I'm only going to be writing down these as variables. So I need to find the other number. That's the difference between these two. So I'm going to say 10 times what is going to equal 40. So I need to find that missing number. Okay, or you could have said 40 divided by 10 will equal what? And we know that's going to be 4. So remember, with these with the zeros, you can just cross off the zeros, and it's just 4 divided by 1. Alright, so we know our answer that we're looking at is going to be 4. So let's put that into an equation. So our equation is going to be 4 times what is going to equal something. So we need to figure out which person are we going to put here. So I need to look over here at our two friends. We had this person we're looking at and this person we're looking at. So I'm going to put the one who's read the least amount of books right over here first, because we're saying we're multiplying, because if I multiply 4 times this number, it should equal this one. So this one should be the larger number. So I'm going to say right here should be N, and this one right here should be the C. So remember, this is the same as saying 4 times 10 was equal to 40. Okay, so once again, this is the equation that you are writing down. All right, let's do a division one. So we need the inverse of this. That means we need to kind of flip it around. So we're going to start with our large number, which was Celine, and she read 4 times as many books as Nahi. So in order to figure that out, we would have said her number, which was 40, divided by 4 is going to equal the 10. So this is the equation that you would have written down. Alright, so let's look at the next one. It says Celine checked out twice as many books as which student? So we were just working with Celine, so we already know that she has 40 books. So we need to figure out she checked out twice as many as who. So, and what is the math that I need to do there? The math that I need to do here is going to be 40 divided by 2. So what am I going to get? I'm going to get 20. So then here's my number 20. Alright, doesn't have the numbers over here, so I need to figure that out. Who over here read 20 books? So I'll remember they each stand for 5. So I'm going to say 5 times what equals 20, or 20 divided by 5 equals what? And that's going to be 4. So who has 4 pictures up here? It's going to be Brooke. So Brooke read, or Celine checked out twice as many books as Brooke. So Brooke read less than she did. Alright, then I'm going to be looking at which student checked out 30 fewer books than Celine. Alright, so once again, Celine, we already know, had 40. And we have our keyword here, which is fewer. So what is our math problem we need to do there? It's going to be subtraction. So we're going to be doing 40 minus 30. That's going to equal 10. So I need to figure out how many books am I looking at here in the graph. So you remember each one stands for 5. So I'm going to do 10 divided by 5, and that's going to equal 2. So I need to say who has 2 books by their name, and that's going to be Nahi. So Nahi checked out 30 fewer books than Celine. Okay, so let's do our last one here. It says the number of books Dawson checked out is not shown. If Jamarcus checked out 10 more books than Dawson, how many books did Dawson check out? So if I'm looking over here, I'm going to say, I need to figure out how many books did Jamarcus check out, because they don't tell us. So I need to come over here and say 5, 10, 15. He checked out 15 books. And then come back here and it says he checked out 10 more books than Dawson. So he has more books than Dawson does. So if I'm going to be figuring this out, I know I'm going to have to subtract. So how many books did Dawson check out? He only checked out 5. So down here I'll be writing down 5 books, but I'm going to have you try right here. If I wrote down Dawson's name here in the graph and you had to draw a picture, how many books would you be filling in? Hopefully you came up with 1 book, because 1 book represents 5. So if I was putting that in there, I would have had 1 book, which looks kind of like those, with Dawson's name right here, and then 1 little book right here. Alright, so we are all done looking at the pictographs, and now I'm just going to kind of show you a bar graph. So you should have seen a bar graph before. This is what we're going to be working on tomorrow in class. So if you are looking at this right here, bar graph is slightly different than a pictograph, and I just want you to kind of look at this, and I want you to answer this question and bring it in with you tomorrow and ready to talk with your partner about this. So I want you to tell me what is a pictograph. Alright, and then I want you to look at this picture and tell me, what do you think a bar graph is? And then I want you to tell me, how do you think a bar graph is the same as a pictograph, and how is it different than a pictograph? So what here is different than the pictograph than we were looking at? So here's our bar graph. Alright, so how is that different than the pictograph? And how is it the same? So I need you to answer those questions on top of doing your other homework. So if you remember, I gave you a sheet to be working on. I want you to work on that sheet at home for your homework, but I also want you to answer that question ready to talk with your partner. And we're going to be doing this whole page for the bar graphs in class tomorrow. Alright? So I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. Bye.